Welcome to the Trap House Podcast, everybody. My name is Justin Jett, and this is episode 6, so thanks for joining us. Before we get started, got to give a big shout out to our sponsors of the show, J3 Outdoors and Hoosier Trapper Supply. They're all over social media, so if you're on Instagram or Facebook, definitely look them up and like their page. And also they have a website, j3o.com and hoosiertrappersupply.com. So you can find them there as well and find all the products you need. Episode 6, we got Tom Morlock. He's out of Indiana here. And kind of a different style trapper. He likes to experiment a lot. And a heck of a guy. He's been involved with Fur Takers of America and NTA at different levels. And he goes out of state on different trips. He doesn't just fur trap, he also does some nuisance trapping. So he's trapping full-time, year-round. So a lot of different situations that he comes across that some of us don't based on the time of year. So we'll be sitting with him and Charlie, kind of chit-chatting about all the trips he's been on and things he's come across and experiences. So it's pretty cool. Before we get into that, I would like to say that Fur Takers of America has started a new Instagram page, so jump on there as well and follow their page, and Facebook as well if you haven't already done that. A lot more postings going on. I've been appointed to kind of take care of social media, so I've been posting quite a bit daily, actually. So. With a lot of updates of what's going on, especially for the national convention coming up here in Virginia. So I was throwing details out there and sharing things. So, but yeah, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. All right, I don't think I have anything else I need to say. Episode 6. I'm glad you guys are listening. Be sure to share this with people. If it's not this episode, maybe a different one. Let's try and spread the word on this. I think the biologist episode with Jerry Ann, episode 3, would be a good one for like people that may be on the fence about what we do as trappers. So maybe, if they don't know, they can get a little bit more understanding, because there's just so much to talk about, and the people that are unsure about trapping, maybe that will help, maybe guide them in the right direction. At least so maybe they might not ever trap, but at least they won't be against it. So that's the goal anyways. But all right, let's jump into it with Tom Morlock and Charlie Mashek. All right, we're here with a couple special guests. Charlie Mashek. How you doing, Charlie?
I'm good this evening. How about you?
I'm doing real good. Then Tom Morlock is our real special guest today.
Real special, huh?
Yeah. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you being on. Yeah. Why don't you give us a little rundown of how you guys started trapping in the first place?
Well, actual trapping, I didn't start until I was old enough to drive. But to get a little more understanding of my background, unlike most people who are into hunting, trapping, and fishing and stuff, I didn't get into it because I have a dad or a relative or an uncle or anybody like that. I had no mentors that got me into that. Mm-hmm. I was kind of like born that way. Ever since I was just a little itty-bitty kid, I've been out, hunting and chasing all kinds of little animals and stuff. I was like 3 years old, and I would travel miles from my house and go to the creek. How my mom put up with that back then, I don't know. But anyway, so I kind of had the instinct when I was little, and I never even heard of trapping or anything. I did have a relative that was sort of into this, but I never met him. I'll have to explain it to you a little bit. But anyway, so I grew up my whole life catching frogs and turtles and snakes and anything I could get my hands on. And and as time progressed, I eventually became a teenager. I heard about trapping and that you can make money off of it, but I hadn't done any of it, So anyway, by the time I was old enough to drive, which was 40 years ago, this year will actually be my 40th consecutive trapping season. So I'm one of them guys that you've heard about that started in the fur boom. I got a taste of the fur boom years.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, at that time, the economy was really bad. You couldn't get a job, even at McDonald's. So my dad was always on me, needing want me to make money somehow. So I got my driver's license, and right before that, though, I actually, it's kind of a complicated story, but before I was old enough to drive, about a year before I was old enough to drive, I was in an accident with my brother. It was the other people's fault, and we got some money out of it. So I took the money that I got, and I bought my dad's truck, and then that following fall, I outfitted myself with some traps. I mean, it was only like 8 110 conibears or whatever. And the last I'd heard, at that time, muskrats were worth about $2. I was like, oh wow, I'm gonna go catch me some $2 muskrats. We used to live out along this ditch when I was a kid, and I knew the farmer. So, Alan won't care. I'll go trap out there. Not knowing at the time, you're really supposed to have permission, but I didn't know anything better. So I was 16, just learned to drive. Went out there. I had like 8 or 10 muskrat traps. Set them there on November the 15th, and the next day I had 6 muskrats. I thought, wow, man, that's $2 a piece. I'm rich. Well,
You're like, this is easy.
yeah. So I took them to the fur buyer, and I got a real surprise. I got $5 a piece out of them. I thought, wow, $30. I'm a rich man, So, but that's how I started actual trapping. But I'm going to talk a little bit about I have to talk about my mom. A lot of people that know me know this, but I don't know if you guys know this, but my mom she passed away now, but she's English, born and raised in England. So all my life, when I was a little kid, all the way up even to an adult, my mom would always tell me about how I was like her brother Eddie, our Eddie, as the English person would say. Oh, you're so much like our Eddie. Well, I didn't know how important that was when I was little, but my mom had left England with my dad probably in the 50s before I was born, so she never returned again until I was like in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And her brother Eddie, her dad died when she was a kid, and her brother Eddie was basically her father figure. And she thought the world of him. So she was constantly comparing me to Eddie, but I didn't sink into me.
Right.
But,
never met him.
So even though no one else in the family supported me, I even had a lot of negative resistance, to discouraging me from doing what I did. But my mom never did. She never really understood any of it because it was beyond her culture. Her culture was different. She didn't really understand the American outdoorsman. But I finally realized too late in life that she was actually very proud of me because I was like her Eddie. And I have to explain that Eddie used to snare rabbits back in England.
No, cool.
It's the only person in my family that actually did anything like what I do.
Yeah.
He snared rabbits and caught birds, and she, like I said, so she always compared me to him. But anyway, so he's kind of like my guardian angel type person, nowadays.
Yeah, that's neat.
And so anyway, back to the actual trapping part. So that season, I caught them 6 muskrats that first day, and it's funny. I can't tell you what I caught last year, but I can tell you exactly how many muskrats I caught that year. I caught 49 muskrats out of that one little ditch that year, and of course I got all my traps stolen, but that didn't deter me. But of course, probably what actually happened is someone else probably had permission to trap Allen's ditch.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it because I was too ignorant. I didn't know guidance. I had no anything like that. Didn't know any better. So anyway, I kept at it. I really loved it, and and when I was in school, I got picked on a lot. I was a little skinny kid, but when I started trapping, I started gaining a lot of respect, and actually I found a couple of good friends. I got another, that related to trapping. I'm still friends with from high school and stuff, and so it just kept growing, and. So my second year, actually the first year I did catch my first 2 mink. First mink I ever caught, I didn't know what it was. I mean, I thought it was a mink, but I wasn't sure. It's a female. So I brought it home, showed it to my dad. I said, well, is this a mink? And he goes, well, I don't know. It looks like a weasel, but it's too big. So we looked it up in an animal encyclopedia. It had pictures in it. Yeah, that is a mink. I don't remember what I got for that mink, but I did catch a male mink later in the season, and I got $22 for that on the carcass. I remember that.
So this is here in Indiana.
Indiana, yeah.
So who were you selling to back then?
Oh, a guy named Purvis. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
I think I have.
Sharpsville.
I think I actually have heard that name. He's long gone.
Long gone, yeah. He's the only fur buyer I'd ever even heard of at that time. So I didn't, as it turns out, he wasn't the best. Found out later, got exposed. As I got exposed to other trappers.
Sure, then
there
you
was
find
other
out.
fur buyers. I found, oh, this guy's not giving me a good price. I started shopping around like everybody did back in those days.
And this was 1979.
79 is my very first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as you know, that was right in the midst
Yeah.
of the fur boom.
Yeah.
So the second year, I caught my first coon. This time I actually realized I needed to get permission. So I got permission for another location where there was some more coon and stuff, and I caught 3 coon that season. Boy, that was great. Thought I was doing fantastic.
And it's funny, they caught a lot of coons statewide to put on the market, but there wasn't this coon back then like there is now.
Yeah, not like there is now.
Kind of flipped, though. We don't have muskrats now. But,
It's the other way around now. Yeah, that one little ditch that I caught them 49 muskrats on, I'm talking a quarter mile or less. And I kept trapping it I don't trap it much now, but I probably trapped it for, every year after that for a good 20 or more years. And I don't know exactly, probably, it probably would have been about 10, 12 years when they started to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
But when in like 79, 80, 81, that time period, I could count on catching 50 to 75 muskrats, no problem on that little stretch of ditch if we had water. The biggest thing then, whether you had rats or not, was whether it rained in the summer. If you had a dry summer, rat population was down.
Right.
But a wet summer, rat population was up.
Right.
It's that simple. So anyway, also that second year, trapping where I was trapping the coons, caught my first fox. It was a gray fox, and I was just blown away. I didn't think I was smart enough to catch a fox. I don't remember what I got for that, but so that was my second year. Caught the 3 coons, a gray fox, and like 60 rats or whatever. Then I had the first big jump in knowledge, I guess, so to speak. I had met a friend in school, and he was a member of Fur Takers. He took me down to back in, this was 81. Back then, FTA 7B had 2 conventions, one in the spring, one in the fall.
Right.
And so that May, he took me down to FTA 7B, first convention I've ever been to. Was just blown away. Charlie probably doesn't remember me, but I remember him, and Jim Mahoney and the other guys that were there.
Crew. Was that down at Heflin Park?
Yes,
down
Okay.
Taylorsville. Yeah.
But anyway, that just blew me away. That was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. So I've been coming back ever since. But that year, I got to see some demos, got to see what a dirt hole set actually looked like for the first time, and those kind of things. Came back in the fall. And that saved my money up all summer, and come back in the fall and bought some more supplies and a dirt sifter, this basket, stuff a trapper's supposed to have. And went out that year and made some fox sets, actual dirt hole sets. Still wasn't doing very good. But amazingly though, even to this day, I caught more gray fox that year than even now I've ever caught. I caught 6 gray fox. Still have not beat that. I don't think I've caught probably 15 of them in 40 years.
Yeah.
But that year I caught 6, so I'm just, but I couldn't get a red fox. I tried and tried, I finally did, but finally caught a red fox. And I can still remember my heart beating in my chest, like the buck fever or whatever you call it. Like, because I seen that red fox. But it was the only one I caught, so season goes on and I kept trying. I still caught a gray fox here and there, and I was only catching, when I say season, I mean years. The next couple of years come on into the 80s. Just can't catch more than like 1 fox a year. And like, what am I doing wrong? Well, here's where I had a really, really big jump.
The epiphany.
Well, there's a guy in the county next to me, real well-known guy in the county. Anybody there knows him that has anything to do with trapping or hunting knows exactly who he is. He goes by the name of Beaver Myers in Clinton County, Frankfort, right? Great guy. Always loved to take kids out and show them how to do stuff and everything. So I don't remember how I finally got to meet up with him, but he was catching 30 fox a year. It's like, well, I got to find out what he's doing, you know. So I finally somehow, I don't know how we got met up, but he took me out, and we didn't even set any traps. All he had to do, what I was missing, is he showed me location. I caught those gray fox because I was trapping in the woods.
Right.
Once he showed me the proper locations, like I said, didn't even really show me because it wasn't even trapping season. He just like, oh yeah, that'd be a good spot. You see that bridge, you know, land bridge there, or where these fenced roads come together. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
He just showed me that stuff. Overnight, like the next season that I started trapping, I started catching 25 to 30 fox, just like that, because simple location. And when I help with trapper ed classes, or people come to me, it's all coyotes now instead of fox, but and say they are not catching anything. I find that most of the time, the piece of the puzzle that they're missing is they don't understand location.
Right, because generally they're using good equipment, good attractant, and know how to construct a set to the point where they would certainly catch something.
Yep.
But they're not on target.
They're just the coyotes never seeing it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I say. I tell people in trapper ed classes all I said, if you're on a poor location, you might have a coyote walk past there once a week. So you get a trapping lesson once a week. Whether you catch him or not, you may miss him, but you get a lesson once a week. But if you're on a hot location, a good location, you might have a coyote come there every other day. So you might have a trapping lesson 5 times a week. Right. Some of them you'll catch, some of them you won't. But your learning curve goes so much faster when you're on location. Even if you may not actually catch all of them, we still don't know. Those guys have been trapping all this time. We still don't catch all of them.
Right.
But
now, how old were you on that? You said
I just turned 16 when
you met.
When I met Beaver Myers. I was probably maybe 20.
20. Okay.
I don't know exactly.
Early 20s and
just early. Still young. So anyway, that was my big jump there, and then as I went on, I was involved a member of the National Trappers Association and Fur Takers and Indiana State Trappers Association, all that, and went to my first National Fur Takers when I had it down in Salem in '86,
mm-hmm.
and then the first NTA was in Mansfield, Ohio. And I thought that was just blown away because I never seen anything that big, and around that time when I started, it took me a couple years to catch my first beaver. Beaver weren't really around a lot back then. But around that time, I bought some bigger traps and tried my hand at beaver trapping. But where I lived up in Tipton County, even today, even though I do beaver work for the county up there, they're few and far between. So, I might hear about a beaver sign halfway across the county, and I'd go over there and see if I could catch it just because I wanted to catch a beaver, But so it was a struggle. And then, and I don't know how I run into this, but there's a place I still trap now down in southern Indiana. It's public land, ate up with beaver. At that time, in the mid '80s, you didn't have you could just go down there and trap like you do the Hoosier National Forest. You didn't have to get permission. You didn't have to have a bid or nothing like that.
Just showed up.
I don't know who I found out about it, but I went down there. It was March 14th, last night of beaver season. And I made some beaver sets. Caught a beaver the first day and had several snap traps. Like, wow, action the first day. But the last day of the season. So the following year I went back down earlier, and I've been going down ever since, and that's where I really learned, just like I was telling you about the coyote learning curve. That's where I learned to catch beaver, because I had multiple colonies to work on, to try different sets and different traps, and I still do that now. Even though I get paid to trap beaver up here, I'll still go down there, and it's like my college.
Yeah,
I got some new idea, because I don't have to catch all of them. I don't want to catch all of them. I just want to catch some of them. I don't wipe out any of the colonies unless the property manager wants me to, which you have to have written permission down there now, but he always gives me that every year. And if he's got a problem with them somewhere, I'll try to wipe them out. But I usually only go down there a few days a year now, but it's whenever I have time, and the weather's got to be right, But anyway.
One thing I was just going to say, like up here we're close to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So in our county, it's the surveyor's office. If a beaver shows up on a ditch, they're out catching. They want because of the water flow.
Yeah.
In a lot of the urban counties, more urban counties, or counties closer to bigger urban areas, they got people working on them all the time.
Yeah.
So if you want to go catch
actually,
beavers in big numbers, a lot of times you do have to head to
Oh,
the
yeah.
more
Oh, yeah, you do.
rural areas for sure.
But actually, I do this county now too because of him. He got me the phone, gave my name to the surveyor.
Oh, okay.
And he called me.
Yeah.
I haven't done very many jobs.
Joe
down here.
Bailey.
Yeah, I haven't done too
Yeah.
many yet, but I do some for him.
Yeah.
Well, you guys must be cleaning them up too much.
No,
yeah.
I did a couple for him, then I was like, somebody else. I ain't got time to be messing with these beavers.
But anyway, back to I probably got sidetracked there, but the next kind of big jump and where I started really learning is I actually got involved in the Trappers Association. It was Indiana State Trappers Association. Became a director. Got to meet a lot of people that way. And here's a lesson for you people out there, beginners or whatever. Get involved, man, because you'll learn an awful lot. And I'll explain some of the things how I learned some things. But so I got involved. I was a director for a little while, but where I really learned a lot is I eventually become the NTA director. Those of you guys out there that aren't trappers, that's National Trappers Association. I was the Indiana representative to the National Association. So the first time I went to a national board meeting, I was just a alternate director. And that's where I met somebody, I'm sure Charlie knows who he is, a guy named Dean Wilson from Alaska. Became real good friends with Dean Wilson.
Yeah.
Never made it to Alaska, but kept up good contact with Dean, and I used to send him videos of trapping down here, and every time he'd come to the NTA convention, I was his official chauffeur,
That's pretty cool.
But another person I met the following year was a guy named Ross White from Nova Scotia, Canada. That's what, and he was same deal. He flew in. I was his chauffeur. Actually, had him in the hotel room with me because he didn't have a room, and we become real fast friends. And that spring or later that year, or whatever, that was in August. So later that year, they have a convention in March. It's a little bit different than what ours are. It's right at the end of their trapping season, and they bring all their fur into NAFA and fur harvesters and stuff at this convention. Well, the Nova Scotia Trappers Association officially invited me to come up there. All I had to do is get there, and they took care of me from there. So I'll go up there. So I went up there and met a whole bunch of other trappers. And here's one of the funny trapping stories you was asking about. I told you I sent Ross videos too of my trap line down here. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the. This is one of the rare times I didn't have this mustache. So when I was in there, I was in this convention. I looked different. So I'm walking around their convention. There's a big bunch of guys, and they're sitting there watching this video. Like, I wonder what this trapping video is they're watching. I walk up there, and it's my video.
That's funny.
They're watching me.
That's funny.
Only they don't recognize me because I don't have this. So I just kind of sneak out of there, try not to draw attention to myself. Of course, Ross wouldn't have that. But, as a matter of fact, funny story about him. When I first got up there, he was a school teacher. So he was teaching elementary school. And, so I actually just went to the school with him, hang out in the class, and went to a couple different classes. And one of his classes was some kind of social studies class for like 10th graders. I had no warning whatsoever. I'm just sitting there, and he gets up in front of the class and says, "Well, students, your lesson for today is Tom Morlock's going to get up here and talk about the USA." So I got to get up there and talk about the United States, just right off the blue, So, but that's the kind of relationship we had. But anyway, he introduced me to other trappers up there, and then I got invited to come back, and I actually run trap lines with them. Now I couldn't trap because you can't non-resident can't trap up there.
Right.
But so I got to run trap lines with several different trappers up there. It's pretty interesting. Now their fur density, when I say density, I don't mean the actual fur, but the numbers of animals is a lot lower than ours. So didn't really catch a whole lot, but I got to see a lot of stuff, that they showed me. And like one lesson, I didn't get to apply it till like 25 years later, but I got to go on a line with a guy who does a lot of otter trapping, and he showed me all of his otter sets. Mm-hmm. So 25 years later, his name was Don Spares. 25 years later, I got an opportunity to do some otter trapping in Arkansas, and I remembered those things that I learned, and that made, first year I never set an otter trap in my life, and I caught 22 of them, because I remembered some of the things that Don had showed me. A little bit about Don is, I don't know if you probably remember, it's been a few years ago that there was a female country music singer that was jogging or something in the park, and coyotes actually attacked and killed her. You remember that?
I don't know if I remember that one or not.
But yeah, it's a few years. You can look it up. But anyway, Don is the guy they hired to catch those coyotes.
Really?
Yeah. So another thing he showed me, which I use a lot today, is I was complaining to him about how we have all these fox squirrels down here, and every time I set a 220 for coons, they get plugged up with fox squirrels. So he showed me a way to bend the triggers, which I could show you with a trap, a certain way to bend them where the squirrels will go through most of the time and not get caught. And so I started doing that, and that reduced my fox squirrel catch by about 75%, just by bending them a certain way.
Right, because you're setting the same trails that everything's running on.
Yeah.
So
But so anyway, I got to learn from those guys up there. That was a good deal. And
so what'd they think of your video?
well, of course, they give you a hard time about checking, because they don't have to check traps every day. It's like they give us a hard time about our fur handling too, because they got theirs just you could eat off a coon when they get done with it. So I have to come back at them. Of course, it's kind of a give and take. We joke around with each other.
Right.
I'd say, well, if I didn't have to check my traps twice a week, I could spend all my time putting up fur too. Stuff like that. That's kind of how we talk to each other. That back then there wasn't hardly any bald eagles around here much either. Me and Ross were driving down the road, and they have a bunch of them up there. And there's this bald eagle right in the front yard of this house or whatever. So he slams on the brakes and, "Get that camera out there, Yankee! There's a bald eagle up there."
Oh, man.
But yeah, so I'm still friends with him. Still talk to him every once in a while. I haven't been up there for a while. Me and my wife took part of our honeymoon up there. That's the last time I was up there, 20 years ago now, over like 21 years ago. But so I kind of met her through trapping in a way too. I mean, she's not a trapper per se, but I was working at a cable company at the time, and she's a Purdue graduate, and she's got a degree in forestry, wildlife management. She doesn't do that now. It has nothing to do with her job. She has nothing to do with that. But anyway, how I met her, she had a job, and she decided up and around Chicago, she didn't like it, so she quit, and she moved back to Indiana to live with her mom temporarily while she figured out what she was going to do. And so she had a temp job at this place I was working. And I don't remember who the third person was, but she was in this little room, about the size of this room here, little room, and she was arguing with somebody, was bad-mouthing trapping, and she was defending it in a way that told me she knew something about trapping. It wasn't just her opinion. She actually had knowledge about it.
And you fell in love right there.
Well, she had that knowledge from going to Purdue.
Sure.
Her wildlife training, plus, and even today I know half a dozen different DNR employees and conservation officers that are all her classmates that I got to know, that I'm friends with now too, so that was kind of cool. But anyway, so I kind of met her through that too. We actually, the year we got married, coon prices were actually pretty decent that year, and there was a lot of them. It was the late 90s, and there was a lot of coon. I still haven't seen that many coon like there was then. And we paid for all of our wedding expenses and everything just trapping coon that year.
Yeah, that was that 96, 97 season, I think. Yeah, 97, right in there. It was pretty good. So yeah,
we racked them up, and I think we caught 125 coon, which don't sound like much to guys out in Iowa or whatever, but in Indiana, especially in this part of the state where you're not really trapping on a big river or something, that's quite a bit of coon, really.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to work. You got to go out and work for them.
Yeah.
And we can't. Unlike Iowa and some of the states, we can't road trap here legally.
Yeah,
so
not legally.
We don't have a road right of way that we can just trap from a vehicle. We do have to have permission. And,
I have to explain that a lot to people who think that an easement's public. and I know it's not because I worked in the cable telephone communication business, so I know what an easement is. All an easement is that the power company, the utility company, or the county highway, whatever it is, even though you own the land, they have the right to be on that to do what they need to do.
Right.
But you own it, so they can't give you permission to trap there. It still has to come from the landowner, but they don't have to have the landowner's permission to work on that easement because they pay a fee to be able to do that.
Sure.
And people don't understand that. Now working for the surveyor is a little bit different. Now I can trespass when I'm working for the surveyor. Mm-hmm. They got a 75-foot easement on each bank from the top of the bank over that I'm allowed to use to trap beaver. Of course, the guys who own the land, they want me there anyway, so it's not like it's a good problem anyhow.
Right.
Right. But every once in a while you do run into, if it's too close to, like in Hamilton County sometimes, that you never know with some of the transplanted city people, they don't understand what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But,
well, I've said it many times that the transplanted urban city people to the country, when the beavers first show up, they think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it only takes just a few trees, and they don't care what it takes. The
get
beavers
'em
have got to
Get
go.
rid of them.
So
got rid of them.
I mean, sometimes it's a discussion about, are you going to catch them and release them somewhere, or are you going to kill them? But they all you're going to do is, if you catch and release, they're just going to create a problem for someone else. So.
Yeah, I've told people stuff like this. I'd say, well, what if I live trap some mice out of my kitchen and just put them in your kitchen? Because that's what you're asking me to do. I'm just taking this problem and giving it to somebody else.
Exactly.
That's what we're doing.
Exactly.
Not to mention the disease and other things that they could be spreading, because you don't know if they're healthy or not. You can't tell. We're not professional veterinarians, and we're not going to, take a DNA sample and see if it's healthy before we turn it loose.
Right.
But yeah, I haven't really been nuisance trapping that long. I mean, I've been part-time, but I kind of got bigger into it now because I just got tired of having a real job and wanted to do some trapping.
Real job.
Yeah.
So you're working 80 to avoid working 40. So
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But no, I do run into some situations, and it is a little different. And, I don't do the exclusion work. Like I don't do anything that requires any kind of carpentry skills or climbing on ladders or anything like that. I pretty much just do the same kind of skills I already have, fur trapping type skills. I do cage trap a few coons and stuff, but it's mainly muskrat, beaver, and coyotes, and I use the same equipment I use on the fur line. Mm-hmm. That's something that even when I do a nuisance job, I refuse to use a rubber-jawed trap just to please the public, because in my opinion they're not any more humane, and probably less humane than a standard, especially an MB 550, which is what I like to use. So I tell people right up, this is what I'm going to use. If you have a problem with that, you'll have to hire somebody else, and I'm not releasing them. They're going to be euthanized. If that's an issue, you can hire somebody else to take care of it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I haven't done any coyote jobs this year, but last year I caught 20 coyotes in the city last year.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I actually caught 12 of them right near Castleton. 4 of them within stone's throw from Castleton Square Mall last year. I mean, there's actually more coyotes around Indianapolis than there is the surrounding areas. Because like I tell people, you're not stealing you're not ruining their habitat. You're creating a far better habitat than they previously had. You go up to, say, like where I'm from, Tipton County, there's plenty of coyotes up there, but it's a lot harder for a coyote to make a living on 1,000 acres of plowed dirt in January than it is all these urban areas where there's all these nice little retention ponds and ducks and geese and muskrats and rabbits and house cats, like plenty of places to live.
Little dogs.
Trash.
Trash.
Dog food.
Yeah.
Coyotes are complete opportunists. I mean, they will adapt.
So so this whole guilt trip about, oh well, it's our fault we have them because we took their habitat, is complete garbage. It's exactly the opposite.
Yeah. you're providing great habitat for them, and they obviously have learned to take full advantage to it and adapt to it.
They love it. They're thanking you for it. Free meals and
Last year, and I'm sure you were well aware of it, the Indiana, when they proposed the mandatory euthanasia of certain nuisance animals to be shot down, and it was just public outcry, emotional, people that just fully heard the mandatory euthanasia, and they were automatically against it, without giving it any thought. But of all the nuisance trappers in the state, and I did know the number, but I'm not going to say it right now because I don't remember the number. But there's a bunch of them, nuisance trappers, licensed nuisance trappers. There was only one that showed up that spoke against it. Everybody else was just general urban public that felt that was a terrible thing. So obviously the nuisance guys fully understand why that was proposed, why that needed to be done. So.
Yeah, and the thing is, they don't want to hear this, but in reality, these people that are against euthanizing any animals or trapping or whatever, they think they're going to save this animal from being pain and suffering or being killed or whatever. They're not really, and they may not even know this consciously, but they're not actually protecting animals. They're protecting their fragile feelings that they can't deal with the realities of life and nature as it is.
That's pretty much it.
And here's the other thing I like to say too. People say, "Well, I want to live in harmony with nature," and then they sit in a room and they look out a window or whatever, and they watch nature and they think that's living in harmony with nature. Well, I don't agree. Think of it this way: if there's a singing band out on the stage, and you want to sing in harmony with that band, you can't do that by sitting in a chair watching them. If you want to be in harmony with that band, you got to get up on the stage and you got to do what they're doing. You got to sing with them. And that's exactly what trappers do. We're in harmony with nature because we participate in nature. We do the same thing that nature's doing. So we understand it very, very thoroughly. And when we're down there in the mud and crud, how many of those people that don't want me killing them beaver ever been waist deep in a beaver swamp with mosquitoes biting them and looking at snakes and all this kind of stuff that we see every day?
Right.
I walked in here, when I come in here, I knew right away there's American toads out there somewhere in the pond, and I heard a tree frog back there. Just automatically know that because I'm around that stuff all the time.
We are as close to that closer to that than any other
outdoor person.
Mm-hmm.
We're like the Navy SEALs of the outdoors.
That's a good way to put it. I like that.
Might be a T-shirt.
I like that.
The Navy SEALs.
Yeah, can I borrow that?
Sure, you can have it. Use anything. Use anything I tell you. But.
That's awesome. So that's very.
Yeah, we're very proactive, hands-on trappers. Yes.
Yeah. It's like I said, I started even when very young, knowing a lot of stuff. I can look at a bullfrog. It has to be an adult. I can look at a bullfrog and don't even touch it. Just look at it, and I can tell you if it's a male or a female just by looking at it.
That's pretty good.
And stuff. I can tell you things about because I did. When I was young, I was really into the herpetology thing. That's the study of reptiles and amphibians. So I was always chasing after them. When I was a kid living out in the country, I didn't know what hip boots were. Never heard of them. We were kind of poor, so mom and dad wouldn't have bought them for me anyway. But I'd go out in February, and you may not know this, but spotted salamanders, they breed in February, even when there's ice still on the water.
Really?
So I'd be out there stomping around in this swamp in tennis shoes in February, breaking through the ice in tennis shoes, wading in the water to try to find salamander eggs. Didn't faze me at all, So because I was my passion for it was so great that the pain of the cold water, I just tolerated it because the passion was strong enough that I was just tolerated to do it. And it's hard to explain that to people who don't have that kind of passion, but.
It was the idea of what you were talking about just a little bit prior to that, and that too. But when we say you take a family vacation and you go out west, and it's very enjoyable, and I like to take family vacations and do that stuff. But then when we go, say, out of state to trap, it's got that real grassroots, hands-on. You can't really explain it.
Yeah, it's hard to
but
explain.
where you're actually just fully immersed and
fully engaged.
Yeah, in that environment, in that geography, in that landscape of that animal that you're after.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's no one that goes out west, can fully appreciate that unless they're at that, that level of activity or whatever.
Yeah,
it's hard to put
level.
it fully in words.
We've talked about that several times.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
But I just thought of something. But back to learning from other people. Obviously, other than Ross and other guys, I've learned from a lot of other guys too. And you're talking about the out-of-state thing. The second time I went down to Arkansas, my trapping partner was one of our former fur bear biologists, Bruce Plowman. Now, Bruce got his master's degree in trapping bobcats. That's what trapping into, and he's done some pretty crazy stuff with coyotes and stuff too. But anyway, we were down in Arkansas and we wanted to catch bobcats, and he taught me something that was interesting, that the coyotes were worthless. And
right.
We wanted to catch bobcats because at that time, not now, all you people out there, but they were worth $90. An Arkansas bobcat was $90.
Right.
Probably get 20 for them now.
Yeah, $20 or $30. Well, yeah, and then the ones we were catching on the western side of the state, there was more than 2 or 3 years there that they would average 120.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember
the 128 one year was our best average.
So anyway, so we're down there, right? And one of his favorite ways to trap bobcats, we'd take a beaver carcass, cut it in half, get rid of the guts, but leave the vitals, like the heart, liver, and stuff, because bobcats love that stuff. He'd just see something like, oh yeah, this looks like a good area for bobcats. He'd throw it out there. We'd come back the next day, and if it was gone, coyote took it. But if a bobcat found it, they'd drag it about 10 foot and bury it in a bunch of leaves and stuff.
Cover it up. Yeah.
So we figured out, okay, there's one here. So then he would take that carcass and he'd find a tree or some kind of backing so that the bobcat can only come in one way. Put it up against the tree, rebury it, and all that stuff. But here's something that he did to avoid coyotes: is that he would put a lot of trash and sticks and stuff around the set, and he put some sticks or weeds or whatever at just the right angles or height or whatever, that when the coyote would come up to the set where his foot might be where the trap is, to stop him from putting his foot where the trap is, you have stuff that stick him in the face, poke him in the eye, stick him in the face or whatever. So he might still work the set and steal the carcass, but he wouldn't get in the trap because he wouldn't step there because he don't want to have that stuff jabbing him in the face. So now when I'm trapping coyotes on purpose here in Indiana or whatever, I always keep that in the back of my mind and make sure there isn't anything sticking up there like that might poke him in the face.
Yeah, we tell people that all the time. It's like you're standing up here, so you got to put yourself at the level of a coyote, and you want that area free. You don't want just that little subconscious obstruction or in your face obstruction. You don't want that in the area. But
he understood that because he had quite a bit of experience. I still talk to him a lot, but not a lot, but a couple times a year. He moved to Alaska for 5 years, and then he's in Pennsylvania now with his parents because his parents were getting older and he didn't have anybody to take care of him. So that's where he lives now. But anyway, he told me some stuff about, he had some kind of coyote project where they had to keep re-trapping the same coyotes. So they got really smart and hard to catch.
Yeah.
So he'd come up with ideas where he'd make a set where they put a trap on a little dirt mound 10 feet away from where the real other smelly scent is, but nothing on that dirt mound. And those coyotes they were onto the smell, so they weren't going to do that. But they'd go over there and stand on that dirt mound to look at it and get caught. And that's how he had to recatch some of the ones that were already collared and to get whatever information they were looking for and stuff. But so yeah, I used to trap with him here too. He'd go out. Now, he didn't know a lot about beaver trapping, at least not with foot traps. So I actually taught him how to do that, how to catch beaver with foot traps, because that was a little bit foreign to him. A lot of people seem to have a difficulty with that, but and I have learned a lot of it. I have learned an awful lot about trapping beaver with foot traps and things, that a lot of myths that people don't, that are burned into your mind, that aren't necessarily true. Like a lot of people raise a lot of eyebrows or whatever, but you can set foot traps for beaver, and you do not have to drown them.
Right.
It's critical though that you do it with the back foot, but you don't have to drown that beaver. If you got him on the back foot and you got him on a long chain, it has to be a long chain or a long cable. And I didn't invent that. Other people did it. In fact, the mountain men used to do it. But as long as he's on the back foot and he can move around, I could care less how deep the water is. As long as it's deep enough for me to set the trap, I don't care how deep the water out there is. And now, if I'm in a nuisance situation, I still use a lot of drowners because, I can't be shooting a gun in Indianapolis. So, at least not get away with it. But, stuff like that. So I still use a lot of drowners. But not using the drowners really takes an awful lot of work out of beaver trapping.
It does.
Yeah.
And I knew about it, but I was skeptical, like a lot of guys. And another real great trapper in Indiana, which you ought to talk to him sometime, a friend of mine, Tom Larson.
Yeah, we got to get with Tom.
Me and him happened to be doing a mountain man beaver expedition one time, and he had just had, and he uses that method, the long chains, and he had just had some knee surgery and he couldn't hardly even walk. So we were trapping out of a canoe. So when he sets these beaver traps, he didn't even have to get out of the canoe. That's when the light went on in my head. Oh, I got to try this.
Yeah.
So that was just too easy.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it that way ever since. So
yeah. That I think I've started hearing about it.
I think O'Gorman started doing it.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, Tom can tell you for sure. But Tom actually has some of his traps are actually Newhouse wolf traps on long chains, 4.5 wolf traps. And I can't remember, but I thought O'Gorman was selling those like that back in the 80s or something, called them like big irons or something. Does that sound familiar?
It does sound familiar. Well, the big iron sure sounds familiar.
But I can't quite remember for sure. But anyway, he has some of those, 4.5 newt that he uses, for beaver traps.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they're a little pricey now.
Right. Well, you sure wouldn't want to lose one of those.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's what got me using the long chains, and they come in real handy. Like with the nuisance work, do a lot of ditches. And the ditches way up, top of the banks up there, and I'm down here. I got to get up and down. Well, I stake it up there, and climb up and down with the chain.
Yeah.
If I catch a beaver, I'm standing up there, I drag him up the bank, so I don't have to, fight my way up the bank with a 50-pound beaver in one hand and sliding back down the bank in the other, stuff like that, they come in handy. Like I said, it's a lot of people just can't get over the fact that you don't have to drown them. Like I said, it's got to be, you definitely go for the back foot.
Right.
But if you get a good solid back foot, they're not going to ring out. They just don't. It's no different than having a coyote or a coon in a foot trap. As long as they got movement and they can get around, got plenty of swivels, they'll be there the next day.
There got a quick story about a guy that was caught a beaver. It was on a steep bank like that.
Oh man!
And he had the thing was still alive.
Yeah.
And he had a drowner slide, but it kinked up or didn't go down.
They do that a lot.
Yeah, particularly on a lighter cable or whatever. So. Anyways, he's going down the bank, loses his footing, falls into the water where the beaver is, and the beaver literally bit him on the bridge of his foot through the chest waiter or hip boot, whatever it was, and he ends up in the hospital getting stitches in his foot and pretty. I mean, when he came in a day or two later, he's on crutches, so it's pretty significant.
Yeah.
Obviously, if a beaver can chew through hardwood, then he can easily chew through your foot. So
go right through your
the
boot.
beaver was defending himself, and it was the guy was laughing about it a couple days later, but it was not funny at the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, I imagine not. Yeah, I've dealt with a few live ones, in situations where I couldn't use a gun, and it's really not that hard once you learn how to kill them, but it still can be a little bit challenging at times,
Yeah.
That's why I always try to kill them, with a drowner set or a 330, or if we I really hope we're successful in changing the 330 law so we can have them partially out of the water, because that would really, really help me a lot in nuisance trapping and having dead beavers instead of live beavers sometimes, because, it's an awful lot easier to, get a beaver into trap in shallow water if it's sticking out of water than then you got to force him to dive when he may not necessarily want to dive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Then you
Doesn't need to when it's that shallow.
Yeah. In fact, when I set beaver traps or 330, in a shallow run, this is something I do a lot. And I don't, I ain't saying I invented this or whatever, but just other people I'm sure do it. But sometimes maybe the trap's only an inch under the water, and sometimes you end up with a snap trap. Even if guys will lay a stick over the top of the jaws. Well, if it's that shallow, he's probably swimming on top of the water, and if he just sees a stick, especially if it's around a dam when there's other sticks and stuff, he's more likely to climb over it than go under it. And that's how they snap it off. So what I do is on either side of the trap, because you don't know which side he's coming from necessarily, I like to stick a stick above the water high enough that he's not going to want to go over it, but low enough that as he's swimming up there, it's going to hit him in the face. And, the natural instinct for even a person or whatever, if you come up to a limb or something, it's going to hit you in the face, you duck under it. And that does help with snap traps.
Yeah.
It's just one of those little tips,
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, that's a very good tip.
But so that's how I set it. In shallow water, I set a 330 like that. Nothing works 100% every time, But I like to, which I've shown in some of the demos down there in the creek. But whenever I look for a foot set for a beaver, and every piece of terrain's different, so no two sets are going to look alike. But my goal is to find a spot where the beaver is forced to stand on his hind feet and stick his nose up to get to the lure, and make it so he can't get behind it. Because this is something beaver do a lot. I've seen it personally, and I got a lot of it on game cameras. If you have the traditional kind of flat area where beaver often make their own mud pies or castor mounds, you make one there. Most of the time, they won't come in from the front of it. They'll climb up on the bank somewhere, maybe 10 feet away. Come on off the dry land and mess around up there and slide off somewhere else, or snap the trap off with their chest or whatever. So what I attempt to do is, whether it's a straight vertical bank, if it's a bunch of man-eating briars that are behind it or whatever, I make it so like he doesn't want to go behind it because he can't, or either doesn't want to or he just can't get behind it.
Yeah.
So he's forced to come in my way. I still get snap traps, and Charlie will tell you, experienced trapper, anybody that tells you they don't get snap traps is a liar. Everybody screws up. Nobody does it perfect every time. You still get snap traps, get pull outs, whatever.
Right. You just don't want it to happen that often.
Yeah. You want to reduce it.
Right.
There's ways to reduce it, but there's no way to totally eliminate it. If there was, then no one would be able to teach you how to do it in the first place, because it never happened.
It's like the beginner trappers that come in and say, "Oh, there's something pulled out, or the trap was flipped off," and it's like I did something completely wrong. And well, they might have, but probably not.
Probably not.
I mean, everything generally is working for them: location, attraction,
just
whatever.
A bit of bad luck, or
yeah,
whatever.
just and they have a really hard time. Of course, they want to have success. They have a really hard time wrapping their mind around that.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, that's what a lot of beginner trappers, especially coyote trappings, is they think too much.
Yeah.
They overthink everything.
I mean, and that, and as you get experience and you do learn, and there is a lot to learn and a lot but you can't just continually just beat yourself up and overanalyze. So it's just because you're doing your
snap trap. I just
reset it and go on. Yeah. So, but of course, when you haven't caught anything, then that's going to start eating at you. Maybe I don't know. So
go through a little dry spell.
I just recently had a. It's really difficult on these game cameras to get a beaver actually putting his foot in the trap. I've only got it once so far, but I got a lot of video of them around the sets. And I had a set, and by the time the camera came on, the trap's already snapped off. I can see the snap trap in the camera video, and this big old beaver just right there by the traps. No, too bad, buddy. I caught him elsewhere, but it's because it was a nuisance job. I had to catch him. Eventually caught him in a conibear in a run. But it's like, man, there's the trap snapped off, and it obviously didn't spook him.
Right.
He's just right there, Actually, it was the adult female when I did catch it, But there's a little tip, I guess, for you talking about the adults, females. Sometimes you get a beaver colony, you're down to that last one, or they get spooky and they don't want to work any of your sets. So you take that oil sac out of one of those family members, especially the adult female, and use that.
Instead of castor.
Instead of castor or instead of a foreign beaver smell, but one they're familiar with that they trust, they'll work that set and get caught. Where they may not work it using a foreign beaver smell because they've been spooked from you messing with them. Mm-hmm. But actually, though, what I found more often than not, when I get a beaver that won't work my set, it ain't because of they're afraid of castor or the trap. It's human scent. They're very, very aware of human scent. They're not always afraid of it, but they're always aware of it. I've had all kinds of beaver, when I used to go down south, or I still go, but a lot of times when I had a regular job and I'd go down south to trap, I'd go down there on the weekend, it'd be dark when I got down there. So I'd be setting traps in the dark. And I'd see beavers, thinking, oh, there's a beaver, I'm going to watch him get in the set. No, they're not interested in the castor. You know what they're interested in? Me. They come up and check me out. Look for me. They're very interested in what I'm doing there. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that in game camera videos where I've climbed up and down the bank, and they're trailing me. They climb up on the bank and
making a slide right now.
Well, they're interested in that smell, and they're trying to figure out what I was doing there.
The curiosity of it.
Yeah, they're not necessarily afraid, but they're aware of it. But they smell human scent, and a trap snaps them in the face. Then they're like, oh, well, I don't know if I want to get around that stuff again.
Right.
Then you got a problem.
Right. That's interesting because I've never really attributed beavers to being particularly shy of human scent or being, and most beaver trappers are not particularly conscious of it.
But you guys also know I do the mountain man stuff. So I've read a lot of mountain man books, and I've actually read in there where the guys they used to say, and this is where their method is that they would wade into the water and then go 20 feet in the water or whatever, set the trap, and then wade back and never touch anything on the bank because it would spook the beaver. That's overkill,
Yeah.
But then as I got more experience, I realized, they knew what they were talking about. They actually do sometimes shy away from human scent.
And would be obviously much more of an issue after you've been there for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, after you've been messing around there a little. Like my schooling down south, I learned here's a lesson on the human scent thing, how I caught a beaver down there. There's one pond down there that I trap every year, and some years I don't catch anything. I didn't catch nothing out of it this year. They checkmated me. But something that they taught me there, and I've used this later, is I don't know why these beaver in this one pond are always like this, but they're like that every year. Every year it's a chess game. But I'd make a castor mound. They wouldn't work it. But they'd make a castor mound 10 feet away. But they wouldn't touch mine. So I got this idea. So I went down there, went ahead and relured my castor mound, left plenty of scent there, and did the mountain man thing. I pulled up the trap, waded through the water over to where he was making his castor mounds, put traps over there, but didn't touch anything on the bank, didn't put no lure, nothing, waded back to my trap. And sure enough, within a couple of days, he went over to work one of his castor mounts instead of mine, and he got caught.
Really?
Yeah. So, it's because he wasn't going to get around that human. He wanted to make sure, he wanted to let me know what he thought of me being there. Like he's like.
Reclaiming that territory.
But he wasn't going to get too close, Another funny beaver, I had a nuisance job in Indianapolis. I usually do it at least once a year. But anyway, I had a beaver there. He was kind of I eventually just caught him in a regular set, but it's kind of funny. There's doing a beaver job, but they also had muskrats, and there was a muskrat den about 20 feet down the bank from where I had my beaver traps. And there's a little flat rock that I would step on to walk down the bank to check that muskrat trap. Well, I come back one day, and this beaver made a castor mound on my rock to protest my presence. It's like, okay. But I did catch him, but it's like he was claiming that rock, But, I've run into goofy stuff like that.
I got a question for you. Yeah. As far as catching them in a lake hold, what's a preferred trap? What do you like?
Well, actually, right now, and there's a couple new ones out there I want to look at the NTA convention, but right now, if I had to pick one trap, it'd be a TS-85.
Yep.
Now, as you know, though, I do use Belial 280s a lot, but they do have a couple of setback, whatever you call them, disadvantages. You definitely don't want to catch one with the front foot. I've caught a lot of them, even by, not on purpose, but accidentally by the front foot in a TS-85, and they still don't ring out. I don't know why, but if you catch one with a Belial 280 in a non-drowning set, like I use a lot by the front foot, you're risking the ring out. They tend to ring out more. And then also, even with the back foot, you got to be careful because I know Belials are a high-quality trap, but you catch a big beaver by the back foot, a lot of times they bend those jaws, and you got a gap in it. So you got to beat that gap back closed. And also, if you catch one by the webbing, which is the ideal way to catch a coon, but that's not a good way to catch a beaver and a Belial. Sometimes I've had them pull out. Now they don't pull out of the TS-85s like that, but they sometimes will out of a Belial. But where I like it, the Belial is when I want to hide that trap, because once you, like from human views or whatever, once you lay that thing down in there, it just melts into the background, disappears. I have to study it sometimes when I'm checking traps to see if it's still there, because I don't dare stick my hand down in there because I can't. Sometimes I can't see anything. I'll take a stick or something and poke around or pull on if it's a drowner, pull on the wire or whatever, But but they're really good for blending in like that. So I do use them a lot for that kind of stuff.
And this is for those of you that are not familiar with the Belial, it is a body trap like a conibear or a body trap. Canadian made. It's got the bend on it so that it's there's no play in the jaws at all.
It
fully
closed,
it's just like a foot trap.
Right.
Yep.
It's essentially, it's just the same.
It's obviously it's made as a killer trap to kill the animal. But Tom's using them.
And I didn't invent that. Actually, Larson, the guy who told me to start doing it, he'd been doing it and told me about it, and I started trying it too. And I don't, he didn't invent it either. Other people have been doing it. But, so it's not something I come up with, but it's something that I definitely have used,
It's but you're laying the trap flat.
Laying it flat.
It's not upright for the animal to go through.
It's like you're setting a big long spring, because that's how because you got the two springs on the sides. So that's. But like I said, it has a few setbacks, but it is a very good trap if you want to. I have a set which when I come out with this video that I'm going to come out with eventually, if I get enough footage, I like to make, especially on public ground or something, I make a lot of what I call invisible sets, which is kind of hard to explain without showing it to you.
Well, they're invisible.
They are. Even a trapper would not see it unless there's a beaver in it. But it's just, I got this kind of cable. I'll have to, like I said, it's something I'd have to show you. I can't really explain it exactly. But I do make some really oddball sets, though, that don't look anything like any beaver set anybody else makes. And they work.
Now, is the video just strictly on beaver?
No, I don't know. I'm just going to film everything that I do, and then we'll throw it. We'll
figure it out.
I just got the camera a couple weeks ago. I have been doing the game camera footage for a few months, but I haven't. I got quite a bit of pretty decent coyote game camera footage of them getting caught in traps.
Mm-hmm.
But the beaver, it's really, really hard to get the game camera to come on at exactly the right time to get the footage that you're looking for, But the coyotes, they seem to be easy, and I was really surprised they don't seem to get spooked very easy. Sometimes they know the camera's there and they look at it, but very rarely are they ever spooked.
How far are you putting the camera from the trap?
10 to 20 feet.
10 to 20.
And it's just on a little pole or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed, doing the beaver, though, I don't know why, but ducks, geese, and herons are just absolutely enthralled by these cameras. It's like it's a magnet. They stay there all night long looking at it. They swim back and forth, look at it, swim back again. So I got all night, a whole card full of ducks coming by looking at the camera. It's kind of funny. I had a goose come up, actually put its face within an inch of the camera lens looking at it. This heron kept going back and forth all night long. I have had some beaver come up and hiss at them too.
Mm-hmm.
Come right up to it and hiss at it.
They're seeing the light.
Well, it doesn't. The light. I'm using what's called a black flash. You can't see a beam of light or anything, but if you look at the camera, it's got these little itty bitty dull red glowing things.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming they see that, and it just fascinates them or whatever. Of course, birds might be able to see stuff that we can't see.
Right.
So that might be something to do with it too. Maybe they can see a beam of light. Who knows?
They cost quite a bit more, but there's trail cams out there that don't produce any light or any sounds or clicking.
Yeah. Well, I've had pretty good luck with them for the most part. There's a few little learning curves here. Unlike a deer hunter where he gets one video of a deer and then the camera shuts off. If I got a coyote in the trap, it just keeps running all night long until I get there to turn it back off, and that eats up the batteries, because it's going to keep moving around. So you got to pay attention to that kind of stuff, and plus make sure the car's not too full, and those kind of things you got to learn. But like I said, I'm certainly not the first one to play with the game cameras, but I just thought it was pretty cool. The first thing I did with one of them was I was doing a beaver job, had some snares. They kept getting knocked over every day. I thought the beaver were gone, but I noticed this crossover was wet all the time. So I'll set a couple snares in it every day, knocked down. Sometimes they're knocked over this way towards the creek, sometimes over this way towards the pond. So I set a game camera on. I said, what's going on here? It wasn't a beaver. It was a soft shell turtle. Soft shell turtle was going back and forth across there, and he's getting his foot caught in that snare.
Pull it, yeah.
So the camera saved me some time there, sitting there trying to catch a beaver that wasn't actually there.
Yeah.
Just a coyote or a soft shell turtle or whatever.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's the thing with there's a lot of that kind of footage out there online, and other people made videos, and you continuously learn on those.
Well, I just got one the
they're
other day
always fascinating to watch.
A beaver set. This coon's messing around there, and he just decides it's a slide going up into the cornfield, and this coon he's messing around for a little while, and then he just gets in the water, just like a beaver, swims off in the water and goes across the creek.
Yeah.
Just like a beaver, Which I knew they swim because I've caught a lot of coons and sets they had to swim to get to.
Right.
But that's the first time I actually seen one of them. He's just like, no big deal. Gets in the water, swims right across.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've got people that tell us the absolute scenario at their set, what happened, what occurred, if they didn't make a catch or whatever. But there's no camera there, so how do you?
Yeah, how you really know?
You really don't know, and we say it often that if without a camera, we can only speculate
as to what happened.
Maybe 20 to 30% guess as to maybe what happened, and then beyond that, there's no way for you to just tell me or for me to tell you or whatever that what exactly happened. And I think that's something that people really get caught up on. Specifically guessing what's going on.
They just think too much. They just think too much.
Yeah, and then they start believing exactly what they thought.
Yeah.
So and
I think their traps smelling bad, or because what, especially with coons. I don't know. A lot of guys don't know maybe, but coons like to eat a lot of worms, earthworms.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's loose dirt, even if your trap's bedded perfect, there's a little bit of loose dirt there. They have a habit of
they love
their claws down, their front feet down in that dirt and feeling around looking for worms.
See what they can grab.
And then they grab a hold of that trap. Say, what's this? And they pull it out. And, well, that's just a chunk of metal. I don't want that. And that's how your trap gets laying over there without being snapped off.
Right.
It's not because they're smart. They just happened to find it and realize it was nothing they're interested in.
Yeah.
And just
yank on the chain and pull it right out of the bed and leave it there.
Yeah.
That's and of course that's attributed to a lot of really intelligent coyotes or foxes, but 99% of the time
it's a coon.
It's a coon.
Digger fox, digger coyotes.
Yeah.
It's probably a coon.
I have some of the coyotes do it too. I have found out in the videos. I've seen not quite this. They don't dig in the dirt, but I have seen them pull the trap out and not get caught in some of the videos I got. Mess
that's
around
cool.
with it. But so they did it more than I thought they would. But coons, you see a coon come up to any coyote set, and it's like, I swear 1 out of 10 coons must get caught because they come in there and bumble around like they're drunk. They don't necessarily come in from any particular direction or anything. They just kind of bumble. Sometimes they hit the trap, sometimes they don't.
Right.
It's crazy, really, when you watch how they. Now the coyotes are a little bit more. They're paying attention to that smell and checking things out. They may not come in from the trap side, make them from the back side, make them from the side, whatever. But they're checking it out. They're definitely smelling it and looking at it, interested in it.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I was like talking to Tom because he's always got what most of us would consider some unorthodox
ways of doing
things and proven ways of doing things.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting. He's got something that he's trying new, or something that typically most of us aren't thinking about, or
well,
whatever.
That's the thing. I always do the regular proven things all the time, but that's where I don't do it as much in nuisance trapping. But when I'm fur trapping, I'll try all kinds of different oddball things. I don't have to catch every animal. If it works, it works. Don't, it don't. And then if whatever I learn, I do have a nuisance job where I do got to get them all.
You can
apply it there.
Right.
Which speaking of that, it's something I've been learning. These guys will go out and catch 1,000 muskrats, 500 muskrats, all these, and all these. Well, but go to a retention pond where there's one muskrat and there's no den. The only reason there's a muskrat there is because the customer keeps sending you pictures of it. Catch that muskrat.
Yeah.
That's a challenge. It can be a real challenge, to figure out how to catch it.
I mean, and that is not because that muskrat is particularly intelligent. It's that it's statistically very challenging.
Yeah, it's just challenging.
Yeah.
Which I come up with a float set that so far is working pretty good, but I can describe it to you and you'll probably understand it. But me personally, I haven't had very, very little luck with traditional float sets. They just don't seem to work very well around here. But what I do know, even when I was a little kid before I started trapping and stuff, is muskrats love those black drainage tiles. You know what I'm talking about? So, plus I needed to make a float set because I had a pond where I couldn't figure out how to catch them. I thought, well, a float set will do it. It has a wall all the way around it. But I can't use foot traps because I might catch a coon. It's a golf course. Can't have some golfer and a coon down there in a number 11. That ain't gonna work good. Got to worry about and you can't got to worry about ducks and stuff climbing on top of things like that. So eventually it took me a couple tries, but what I eventually did is I made a float set out of one of those black pieces of tile, so it floats halfway in the water. The first one I tried, I did use foot traps, and I was doing it in first season, had it in a farm pond where it didn't matter if I caught a coon or whatever. And it worked pretty good. So, but I thought, well, I can't use them foot traps in those retention ponds. So I started using 160s. I rigged it up where it's just a little float with floating tile, so to speak, with 160 on each end, and put some bait or lure or whatever in the middle of it. And so far, I mean, haven't caught a lot of muskrats, but this one pond that I can't catch them any other way, I've been able to get them caught by just throwing it out there. I tie a brick to it so it doesn't float away. Just throw it out there and just let it float. And they like those black tiles.
Yeah.
It's covered, so no birds are going to get into it. And if I do end up with a coon in it, he'll be dead, which is still not great, but at least he's dead. I don't have a live one to deal with, from a person to see or whatever.
Right.
But I'll show it to you when I make that video or whatever. I'm still kind of messing around with it, trying to get the best bait and way to get them to come in there. Because I found with muskrats, unlike beaver, you got to be right on top of that muskrat. He's not coming to that set. He's not gonna see that tile on the other side of the pond, some across the pond to it. You got to be like 10 feet away from him, just like you do a coyote set. Where a beaver, which I do this a lot, if it's a pond, I don't care where the slide is, where the den is, or whatever. I want to know which way the wind blows, or what side of the pond's closest to the truck or the ATV, especially if it's wind. And I'll make the set on that side of the pond because a beaver will come all the way across that pond when he smells that castor. They'll travel a long ways. But there's another story with me and Larson, another mountain man thing. We were doing a mountain man beaver thing. We were on a lake. It was probably 100 yards across at least, and we'd made a couple sets. It was just starting to get dark, and we were in a canoe, and this beaver comes out. And we can see him. He's swimming over towards the set that I made. He comes over there and he swims around, messes around with it for a little while, but doesn't do nothing. Then I don't know if he just winded it or what. Then he smells Tom's set. He goes over there, messes around a little while, but doesn't climb on the bank or nothing. Then he just vanishes, just disappears. We're like, so we're sitting in a canoe. We're in a canoe in the water in some standing timber that's in the water. So we're just kind of sitting there. And then about 20 feet away from us, here comes this Loch Ness monster next to a log goes, it's this beaver. And he's more interested than us. He's interested in what we're doing there. He swam 100 yards across that pond, covertly, and then suddenly appears and sits on that, puts his front feet on that log and stares at us for about 5 minutes, and then disappears. But just our presence he was interested in seeing us. He'd come all the way across that pond just to look at us, just see what we were doing there.
Curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, they do that, and when they do work a set too, they don't just come bulldozing into it.
Most animals don't.
I mean, they swim back and forth, and they may check out that set half a dozen times before they ever get close enough to actually step their foot in it.
Right.
Because they just keep swimming back and forth and around and stuff. That's another reason why it's kind of hard to get them on the camera sometimes, because you get them swimming back and forth, and then because it only runs for like 90 seconds, and then it kicks off, and then he gets in the trap.
Right.
That happened a lot of times. But
do we have a projected date or time that this video will be done?
At least next year, because I got to go
year.
through a regular fur trapping season.
Collect some more footage.
I am going to get footage, from all my nuisance jobs, and plus I got to learn the camera. I've got to remember to look at the camera when I'm talking, and then I do have a cell phone app now, so I can. When I get down in there, when I'm filming myself, which is most of the time, I
can
make sure I'm
angle.
not cutting my head off and all that kind of stuff. So I got to work out those bugs, and I just I just did a big beaver job, but it was right on the interstate. And I filmed pretty good stuff to film. I want to film this one, because it was an 8-foot dam, huge backed up water, great place to make.
Well, you couldn't hear anything because of the
I
traffic.
play it back, and it's nothing but sounds like the Indy 500.
Right.
Can't even hear my voice. So everything else that I filmed after that, I didn't even talk. I thought, well, if I end up using it, I'm just going to have to delete the sound and just
voice
narrate it. Or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
But yeah, that was that's a pretty big dam. It was for INDOT, Indiana, whatever.
Department of Transportation. Yeah.
But they right under 465. They it's about 8 foot. When they told me, well, we got an 8-foot dam. Oh yeah, sure you do. You've heard that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they did. They had an 8-foot dam.
So how many beavers did you take out of there?
Only took 5. There's only 5 of them before I got them cleaned out. But they'd been trapped before, so other people had tried to catch them. So I wasn't sure I was going to be able to catch them. But didn't have any real serious problems with any of them. A couple of them snapped the trap off and didn't get caught, but I eventually got them all. And I did another one that Dennis Cobb turned me on to that one, or he gave him my name, a Ford dealer down in Fishers, and caught 4 beaver down there, caught them in 2 days, wiped them right out. And then that was after somebody had already been trying to trap them, and I could even see trapping wire on a beaver stub where somebody had some kind of trap near the dam. I don't know what kind of set it was, but so I thought, well, these are going to be a problem, but nailed them right off. No issues.
That's one thing I will say. When we ever go after beaver, they get trap shy, like we've talked about. I gang set them.
Yeah.
Throw as much stuff out there as I can.
To avoid the trap shyness.
I'd hate to educate them so quick and then have to fight them trying to.
Yeah. Well, I usually start out with a couple. If I go to a typical drainage ditch with about a 3-foot dam or whatever, most of the time it's a mated pair. I'll just put in 2-foot sets, and if I find a good spot, I like it below the dam, not above the dam. A good 330 set in a spillway, that usually nails them pretty quick,
Mm-hmm.
But they're all different. I got one up in Hamilton County that's giving me a hard time. He's ignoring everything I throw at him, so now I'm gonna have to think of something different. Of course, the water come up on me now too, and changed everything. But
right. That made me just one lone bachelor beaver.
Yeah, well, that place has got a history. It's kind of funny. When I was in high school, people used to trap, or old guy was trying to trap a beaver there and tried, couldn't catch that thing. And a couple of us kids tried to catch him, couldn't catch him. This guy had a 330 across the creek, and he fenced the creek off with one of those that like wooden fencing that people have, that little cheap.
That lattice stuff.
Yeah, lattice type stuff. Mm-hmm. Beaver chewed a hole in it and went around the 330. So he, as far as I know, no one ever caught him. And we gave him a nickname. We called him Leroy. Well, then last year I get a job. I got to go to the same place. So I go down there and try to trap. Same deal, man. Just ignore me. Have a real hard time. Doesn't want to cooperate. I finally caught him in a dam break set, and I was joking around with my wife. And it was a real old beaver too, real old. I mean, he was probably only 50. He was about 50 pounds, but he was real long and skinny, almost looked like an otter. So if he had been filled out like a normal beaver, I'm sure he'd been 70 pounds or more. So I was joking. I wonder if that's old Leroy.
Leroy
might
Beaver.
be.
Yeah. But now I'm back there again, and I'm having the same problem. So what is this? Leroy's
Revenge.
descendants or something? So
that's funny.
Eventually we'll get him. It's just you just got to keep trying some. Sometimes it's just as simple as okay, you don't like that lure, try a different lure.
Something
happens.
different.
Even with a snap trap, trap gets snapped off, and then put a different lure there. Come back. If they keep coming back, they're going to get it one way or another.
Right.
If you can keep them coming back. But sometimes it takes a little time. But yeah. So anyway, I don't know if I have any other. I'm sure there's a lot of other funny trapping stories. I was trapping down. This one's funny. I was trapping down in southern Indiana. It was on a strip pit. It was in like February, right after ice out. At this point in time, I was still using number 4 long strings. There wasn't any big traps available back then. I had them little floppy pans. Wasn't as advanced then as I am now. And, so the pan tension is real light. Well, I had a set on this little island, about a 10-foot diameter island, 50 feet from the bank. And I was using a boat to get out there. Well, I caught a goose in the trap. Goose wasn't hurt. But, it's kind of a windy day. So I'm out there. I wade out to the goose, and he's beating me with his wings or whatever. I open up the trap, and he swims off, and then I turn around, the boat's gone. The wind blew it to the bank 50 feet away. This water's 10, 20 foot deep. It's right after ice out. No one's ever going to find me. There's no cell phone at this time. It's like, well, there's only one way. I got to swim. So there's the only dry place on the island was a big rock. I stripped down naked because I didn't want to wet my clothes. Put them all on the rock. Now, I didn't jump right in because I knew that would, it shock me.
Right.
So I walked into my neck, until I kind of got used to the water. And then I swam across to the other side and got the boat and motored it back over there and got my clothes. But I was, I'm glad nobody seen me, motoring around naked in a boat. But, I got my clothes back on and said, well, I've never failed to tie the boat up since then.
Yeah, that would be a good
good lesson to learn there.
Yeah, no kidding.
But, so I've had some adventures like that.
That's my favorite one I've heard today.
Had beavers climb up on the bank and threaten me. Literally climb up there and hiss at me and stuff.
Flap their tail at you. Smack it.
Right on the bank.
Yeah.
Okay. But I actually wrote an article. It's been probably about 10, 12 years ago now, Trapper's World, of all the little adventures I've had where beaver have come up and looked at me or I've seen them or whatever. I called it Close Encounters of the Beaver Kind.
Yeah.
If you go back and look. But here's another one that's kind of funny. A place I trap a lot. Not kind of funny. It's kind of scary. At the time, it's kind of scary. But I trap this place every year, and there's a big old, huge, overhung tree stump. It's a great place for some blind sets for mink.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for this particular year, it was really dry. So it's kind of dry up under there, and I really couldn't set the trap where I normally would. So I thought, I'm going to crawl up under there, and I'm going to look around. There's things way up above my head, the top of the stump or whatever. And I'm looking around in there, and I'm all bent over. I get all this dirt starts falling on the back of my neck. I'm like, what the heck, So I kind of step back and lean up, and then plop! A beaver falls right at my feet. It was up in that root wad.
Yeah.
Fell right at my feet and waddles away. It's like, man, if that thing had fell on the back of my neck, it's been pretty scary,
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, man.
But anyway, that story is about stuff like that I've encountered. Like I said, I wrote it several years ago. I don't remember what all else is in it, but it's in Trapper's World.
And you've been presently writing the more historical mountain man articles.
I had for a little while for the Fur Taker
magazine.
I'm so busy all the time, it's awful hard to sit down and write stuff. But yeah, I was doing that for a while. I am in a group called the American Mountain Man, which is a hardcore reenactment group where invitation only. You got to be able to amass certain skills before you can become a full member and all that. I mean, they do the real thing. Now, I'm not doing it. A little too rich for my blood, but some members of my party and some other guys around the United States have put together this thing that they're going to do. You guys are probably familiar with William Ashley, the guy that started the rendezvous. Well, the first rendezvous he had was in 1825, where there's a certain route that they took through Wyoming to the Yellowstone River and then down to Missouri and so on. These guys are going to redo that. Totally pre-1840 primitive. They're going to ride on horseback north to south across Wyoming, about 500 miles across Wyoming on horseback, primitive. Then they're going to get in canoes and bull boats and travel the Yellowstone River until it comes into the Missouri. And then when they get to Missouri, there's one of the guys that's building an authentic keel boat. They're doing everything like Ashley did it. They're basically trying to do what he did. Then they're going to take the keel boat all the way to St. Louis. It's going to take like 3 months.
That's awesome.
If you look it up, you might be able to find it. It's called like Ashley's Return or something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, they got it on probably on the Facebook somewhere. But if you look it up, but yeah, it's like, you know what? I don't.
That's
That's
definitely
a little bit too
hardcore.
much for me. I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm a little too old for that. Those real mountain men were like in their 20s when they did that. You know.
That would definitely be an adventure.
But yeah, those guys are very serious about, the AMM guys are very serious, about what they do. They want to do everything is very authentic and strict. They do a lot of research. They won't use stuff that they can't research, and you won't see them carrying around a bunch of iron pots and iron cook gear and all that stuff because they didn't carry any of that stuff. That's too heavy. Be marching around the Rocky Mountains carrying an iron pot. Who's going to do that?
Right.
So they try to be as authentic as they possibly can.
Yeah.
But then,
cool.
They got to follow the game laws and all that. They can't. They get hungry out there. They can't just kill a mule deer in July or whatever.
Right.
But or kill a bald eagle and eat it like a Romans probably would did. But so they got to adhere to that. But yeah. So I'm currently what's called the Brigade Bushway for Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and then below me is parties. There's a party in Indiana and a party in Ohio. There isn't a party in Pennsylvania, but there's members in Pennsylvania, so I represent those guys. Kind of like I'm on what's called the Grand Council. It's kind of like the governing board or the NTA board of directors or whatever, make all the decisions for the organization or whatever.
Okay.
But you got to be a High Verano, which is when you what a high. I'll back up a little bit. When you first get involved, you're a pilgrim, probationary guy, and then once you make that grade, get to what's called a boss loper, then you're a full-fledged member, and you don't have to go any higher than that. But there's a set of 20 skill requirements. You got to do 10 of them to be a boss loper. And if you complete all 20 of them, then you become a High Verano. Well, to be on the Grand Council like I am, you got to be a High Verano. They don't. They got to be so. Anyway, so I've done all 20 of them, but some of them are easy, some of them are not. One of them, brain tan. You got to know how to brain tan stuff. So I made my whole that outfit. That's my Facebook
picture. Yeah,
I made all that. That's all my own. I didn't kill the deer, but I tanned all the deer. Cut out the patterns, sewed it all myself, and everything. I made all that stuff, and that stuff's expensive. And what got me to do that, I learned how to brain tan just for the requirement, but the reason I made that outfit is that to buy that off of the guys that do that sell that stuff, that make those things, that costs you about $1,500 or $2,000 to buy what I'm wearing in that picture.
Right. That stuff's incredibly expensive.
So I was like, well, I need to make that myself.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Are we going to see you at the 7B Rendezvous for another demo?
Sure. Well, as long as I'm not tied up doing something else, I should be. Like I said, that's where it all began for me as far as conventions are concerned.
Sure.
That 7B, that just set the course for me.
And here we are. It's come full circle. Now you're here doing demos, and so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So like I said, I still remember that very first one. I was just blown away. That was the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Speaking of that, I always hear about the Heflin Park days, and of course I'm one of the young pups here. I think we should go back and have a fun spring day meet. Just gather and get together, have a couple trappers there, maybe that want to do a demo and just have something good to eat and maybe do some fishing there.
Yeah.
Yes, right on. Was that the Driftwood River?
Driftwood, and then there's that little pond there
far.
too.
Yeah, little pond, yeah.
Just to have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a guy there. I think he's passed away now, but I know Charlie knows who I'm talking about. A guy named Gary Law. And he used to give trapping instructions, and I always remember his little pamphlet said something like this. And I use this as a joke sometimes when somebody wants me to do something. He says, his cost was $100 a day plus expenses. That's what it says. So someone, hey, can you show me how to do something? And I kind of joke with them. I go, yeah, it's going to cost you $100 a day plus expenses. Well, what's expenses? Well, steak dinner, lobster, whatever.
Yeah.
But has he passed away now?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
But
I never really kept in touch with him, but I did talk to him. One day, somebody called him from the rendezvous here. Called him down in Mississippi or Alabama, wherever he was. He was down there as a trapper, state trapper.
But I remember one of the fur sales back in the 80s or whatever, and it was in the Fur Taker magazine or whatever, and Gary Law showed up with like 137 fox. I'm like, that was mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
That somebody caught that many fox.
Yeah. Of course, that was all he did.
Yeah.
And if you had the ground, but that's the whole key. If you've got the ground to go out and do it, and you've got the time, then and you've got
that's the thing.
And got
the ground's
knowledge.
So much more. If I had the knowledge and the ground that I have now back then, that'd be easy.
Right.
But the ground back then, you couldn't get it. It's like deer hunting today. Somebody's already got it. There is no place where deer hunting is allowed that somebody doesn't have permission to hunt it.
Right, exactly.
And that's how it was with trapping in the fur boom days. If any ditch, creek, whatever, if they allowed trapping, somebody already had permission.
Right.
And it was really tough to get in on that stuff. Now though, for me anyway, it's been really easy. I mean, I got more land than I can trap on most of the time because nobody wants to trap any of it, and it's.
They see the need to have someone there to trap it too,
and a lot of guys have been trapping on for a long time. Like one family I trap for up in Tipton County, I just they got a lot of acreage and they got a lot of different places and stuff, and I trap all of it.
Yeah.
And when they have a problem, like one of them had muskrats in his pond, he has every year. I just finished cleaning out some muskrats out of his pond. Don't charge him nothing. And he calls, I go take care of it. They got a groundhog, I go take care of it. Whatever. Mm-hmm. And that goes a long ways, for these kind of people.
Maintain the relationship, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so trapping has been, like I said, when I was a kid, being picked on and made fun of and all that stuff, was a little different life for me back then. But it really changed my life. Really, I really wish I could somehow make these kids today that are so depressed and suicidal and hate the world and all this stuff. If they could experience what we have experienced in the trapping fraternity, how the great people, like when I was down here this fall, he's older than me, but a guy's been going running some traps with me. He wants me to teach him a little bit about trapping. Had him down here with me, and I was selling some used traps, and I had a cash box with a bunch of cash in it, and I just left it laying on the table. He goes, "Are you going to leave that laying there?" He goes, "Oh yeah, these guys ain't gonna take nothing from me.
Yeah,
that's the kind of people they are. They don't take stuff. That's how we are. That's what.
That's a good.
That's how we are.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. If I could somehow, and some of them are my own relatives, if I could get them to understand that the world's not this horrible, hateful place. You're just hanging with the wrong kind of people.
Right. Your perspective.
Yeah.
And
you need to get
crowd.
out there where you get some trappers, and I find the same thing with the reenactment community. They're great people too. It's hard to believe. Of course, my wife does give me a hard time that I have this innate ability to find people that are total strangers that are great people. So I got a story to tell you about that. It's kind of interesting story. This this is a sample of that. As you know, my mom was from England. Well, her ancestors came from a place called Guernsey. I don't know if you know where it is, but in the English Channel, they got what's called the Channel Islands. Jersey and Guernsey are two of them. Anyway, my mom's Viking ancestors came from originally settled on Guernsey like 1,000 years ago. And I got the family tree going back to the 1500s there. So when me and my son was over there visiting a few years ago, we decided, we're going to go to Guernsey. My mom and older brother had already been there, but I wanted to go and see some of the old graves and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, and this whole island's only like 6 miles by 12 miles. That's all the bigger it is, little bitty island. So me and my son, we're checking things out, and there's this one particular graveyard is kind of the epicenter of my ancestors. His name is Tarode, or as the proper pronunciation is Tarold, but in England they've changed it a little bit. But anyway, so we're at this graveyard, and the stones are so old. A lot of them I can't read because there's this lady, older lady, like 60s, retired age, picking weeds out of flowers or whatever. So I go up there, hey, ma'am, you happen to know where the Tarode gravestones would be? And she corrected me with the proper Guernsey pronunciation. And then she said she didn't know where they're at. But anyway, we got to talking to her, and next thing you know, she's telling, there was a farm there that had been in my mom's mate or her surname for like 400 years. It's not anymore, but I wanted to see it. And she knew where it was at, so we'll just jump in the car with me, and total strangers from America, 3,000 miles away. And we're men. She's a woman. My boy was only 14, but so we would jump in the car, drive over there, shows us that. We ended up spending like 6 hours with this lady. She's driving us all over the island, showing us, gave us a grand tour and everything. Her name was Victoria. So anyway, to be thankful to her, when I got back home, and she was not against trapping. I told her she was all for that. So I sent her a tanned beaver hide. I sent to her. I kind of kept up with her through emails and stuff. Well, 2 years later, the whole family we went to go over there and visit my cousins. My mom's passed away by this time, but we want to go visit the cousins. My daughter and wife hasn't met them, so we want to go meet them. So, but we also want to go. I want to take them to Guernsey. So I get a hold of Victoria and say, hey, we're going to come over to Guernsey this summer, and if you're around, we can have dinner or something. Well, that wasn't good enough for Victoria. We weren't just having dinner. We were staying at her house. we stayed at, we stayed at her house. And to put that into perspective, their money's worth a lot more than ours. So that saved us about $2,000 in expenses by being able to stay at her house.
Sure.
And all because, you're a friendly, good person to somebody,
I try not to know a stranger.
There, but
Yeah. I mean, I think to be a trapper, you have to have a pretty decent work ethic because it is a lot of work.
Yeah, it's work.
But you have to enjoy it, and it's a lifestyle interest for sure.
Yeah.
It's not something you just occasionally you can't just go. You got to do. If you set traps, you got to check them.
Yeah.
You don't have the opportunity to roll over and sleep it off. Sleep not or
if
sleep
it's raining
in.
out, I don't think I'll go to my deer stand today.
Yeah.
It's raining. Well, trappers don't get that luxury.
We're going to sleep off this bad weather, and we're going to get up and do it the next day. Well, you can't do that. So, I mean, I think, and we all understand that, and we all have that same, but anyways.
But, and sometimes I do get tired of, and I know you probably do too, but sometimes you have to have real patience when you hear all these people. Well, yeah, I used to trap. What's coon prices or what's fur prices? You tell them what they are. Well,
that ain't worth it.
We're doing it. Well, I worked down at the boat show a lot when I was president of the ISTA, and one day I had this guy come up. Now, I said this to this guy. If you get this next time it's a boat show, maybe you should use this. But this guy comes up, he's got like $300 or $400 worth of fishing gear. and he's like, well, what's fur prices? I don't know what they were, but they were low.
Right.
Well, they're such and such. Well, it's not worth doing it, is it? And so being a smart aleck, I go, well, what's smallmouth prices this year? He goes, what? What about crappie? What are you getting for them? Well, I don't get anything for them. He says, well, not worth doing it then, is it? He didn't have nothing to know what to say then.
I've actually used that before.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, we've said
So
it.
what's that deer hunting paying you?
Yeah,
it's just what you enjoy doing, and people just have a hard time with the idea that we just enjoy trapping. It doesn't.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
not,
They just don't get it.
Yeah.
And you don't see this too much at the boat show, but I did have a kid come up here one time. He's a young kid, and obviously he'd probably been poisoned by his mother or some other person, adult. But he was real upset that I had all this tan fur laying on the table.
Yeah.
Upset that these animals were being killed, and he was just grilling me, about killing these animals. Well, he was chewing on a big old piece of beef jerky.
Yeah.
So again, with the attitude, I said, "Well, buddy, who was it that killed that cow you're eating?" And he just got red in the face and got all mad and just left.
Yeah. You got to call them out.
It's like, I'm not going to take that crap.
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah. The one that goes through me is I love trapping. I just love doing it. And when fur prices dropped, I don't do it anymore. Well, when you didn't really love it.
Yeah, you didn't really like it.
I mean, that one that kind of goes through me a little bit.
It's me too. It's like it was just even though I originally started, because I wanted to make some money, man, I was hooked immediately and just never.
Yeah.
Because it was just natural to me because I already was into doing wild stuff and catching animals, and my mom used to yell at me all the time for dragging turtles and frogs and mud in the house because it's part of the English culture. You go to like my cousin's house in England, you can eat off the floor, and that's how my mom was.
Yeah.
So me dragging wet, dirty animals in there because I didn't have hip boots, so I had mud and crud all over my pants, and she'd make me take my clothes off in the garage before I come in the house so she could wash them right then and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But those were my kid days,
Yeah.
But no, none of my siblings had any interest in it whatsoever. Even my own kids. Even though I took my son with me and my daughter too. My son, I first started taking him when he was wasn't even old enough to walk. I used to took a NAFA fur shipping bag with me. So if I had to check a beaver trap or something like that, I'd lay it down on the ground so he wouldn't get muddy and he could play around on the bag while I was resetting a trap or whatever. But I mean, he went with me and enjoyed all of our time together. He even did a science experiment about trapping. We did it. That's also an article that was in the NTA magazine, American Trapper. I think how old he was, 10, 12. I don't remember. But his experiment was he wanted to determine which was more attractive to a beaver, castor or the oil sac. And his hypothesis, which I agreed with too, is that the castor was going to be more attractive. So we went down to our southern Indiana thing down there, and we set a bunch of traps. Each colony we just set 2 traps, one with castor and one with the oil sac, a few feet apart, and see what kind of action we got. We caught beaver in both sets, but they definitely were far more aggressive at working the castor than they were the oil sac.
Right.
That was the what we found out, which we thought that's probably what was going to happen. But he actually did the experiment, But he's not interested in trapping. He's just not an outdoorsman, not really interested. Which, and I don't pressure him because I grew up my whole life. You can't keep doing that. You need to play baseball. You need to do this or you need to do that. No, I don't need to do that. I want to do this.
Yeah.
So I don't want to pressure him. Just let him do his own thing, whatever he wants to do.
Well, you never know. Later on, he might come back to it, and then at the very best, or you don't have an anti on your hands.
Yeah, he got exposed to it. He understands it, and he knows it's not a bad thing. Same way with my daughter. She's a hardcore meat eater. She's definitely not against it or whatever. I always tease her because she's 17 now, so I always say she rolls her eyes at me a lot. But I was like, make sure you tell any prospective boyfriends that your dad gets paid to kill stuff. I tease her a lot, stuff like that all the time. But now she's afraid to anybody to ever bring a boy home or whatever. But no, she's definitely not anti. This is kind of unrelated to trapping, but you got chickens and stuff, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had chickens when we first when they were about 3 or 4 years old, and I got 2 sets of chickens. I got some bannies. I got some full-size ones, even though I really done all the work for the most part. The bigger chickens were my son's because he was older, and the banny chickens were my daughter's. Well, when you got chickens, you got extra roosters. The only thing to do with them, you kill some of the extra ones and eat them.
Right.
So we killed some of the full-size roosters to eat them. My daughter's she's like 3 years old. She's like, that's not fair. She's just very upset. You got to kill one of my roosters too. So we actually killed one and cooked it over an open fire,
Right.
spit over a campfire. Yeah, she was upset because we didn't kill one of hers. That's not fair. You killed Ian's rooster, but you can kill one of mine.
That's great. Oh, man.
But so kids are a lot of fun. Like I said, I still do take my daughter fishing at least once a year. We try to take a fishing trip. She probably would never go on her own, but she likes to go with me. Has a good time with it.
Right.
And they definitely like to eat them. She hates it when they catch a bass. I say, well, it's only for 13 inches. I can't keep that one. It's upset because we can't keep it and eat it.
Right.
So I don't want to get in trouble. Got to put that one back.
Any concluders, Charlie, before we wrap this up?
I don't know. It's just a good evening.
Yeah.
Good evening. Good. Tom's full of knowledge, full of stories and whatever. So
Yeah, like I said, we could go on forever.
Oh, man.
I just,
we might have you on in the future, too.
We'll save that one. We'll do that one for another one. So,
yeah.
And
we'll definitely do an update for when you have your video ready.
Yeah. If like I said, don't hold your breath, but I'm gonna try to. Like I said, I just got the camera a couple weeks ago or a month ago or whatever. Well, because I was asking you about them.
Yeah.
But so I want to at least go through a complete fur trapping season where I can get a lot of different kinds of things on there, to choose from to be able to put on it. We'll be using it all year, nuisance trapping, but that's mostly just going to be beaver. Nuisance muskrat trapping is pretty boring. It's just pretty much cage traps and conibears and
The typical.
yeah. But,
well, we appreciate you being on. If anyone has questions for Tom, you can find him on Facebook, right?
Yep,
Anywhere
I'm on
else?
Facebook.
That's probably
I'm
the best
not on
place.
Instagram and all them other things. I can't hardly keep up with the technology there. But.
Yeah, Facebook's the best option. So,
anybody can contact him. So.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Trap House Podcast. We'll see you next time.